Boy, oh boy, to been sitting with myself for a bit because I needed to, cause Zelda does this to those video games do this to me. Who am I kidding? This game really just finished Wind Waker, and you know, thought I'd sit for a sec, go over my thoughts with it, of it. Oh man, I can actually close. Oh, this feels weird. I can close finally most of the close all of the windows. Actually, I've had like a window that had 5 tabs open for weeks and weeks, months probably, as I recorded this game. So that's that. That's good. This game is something special. I think this game really exemplifies specifically why why this was something I wanted to do. Like why this was like a meaningful venture and why it was worthwhile to do, I think, because as I was playing, obviously I was drawing these lines, drawing these threads that I was noticing come up throughout the game about hanging on to the past and about what previous generations leave future generations, and traditions, and maintaining traditions, making new traditions, letting go of the past, letting go of the old ways, forming new ones, looking to a future, all of these things, right? And lo and behold, I mean, because you know, when you play games when you're young, you're reading, but maybe it's not everything is like sitting in your mind. It's not all connecting together in your mind, because you know, you're just sitting there, you're hyped, you just fought a boss, you know, you beat a video game, woo, great, awesome, you know, you're young and you beat a game, you're so flooded with endorphins, right, that you're like not even thinking straight, you're not thinking about it. But then you know, so returning to it when you're older, you're seeing all these plot threads expand and connect, and you're seeing the story weave together as it goes throughout the game. And I was talking about all these things. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, subtle little hints here and there, but what the game seems to be talking about, what it seems to be alluding to, you know, just a subtle thing. It's a little story in the background. But then at the very end of the game, and this is why it's so worthwhile coming back to these games after so long, you get to the end of the game, and that is what it was all about. They're just giving it to you straight. The characters are flat out saying it to your face now, you know? It's all coming to an end. It's all coming to a close. The King of Red Lion's dialogue at the end of the game breaks me. It's so good, and it's such a good final note. Because the whole game I was like, yeah, well, Ganondorf wants Hyrule back. Wants to maintain Hyrule so he has something to rule over. He's stuck in his old ways, you know. He still wants to. He's got his old plan in mind, right? And then I was like, you know, King of Red Lions. Oh man, throughout the credits of the game, they really show every single character. Like every single character that we've taken pictures of throughout the whole game, they all show up in the end credits and bubbles. Every single enemy, every single character, even the ones you probably like maybe never talked to potentially, because it'd be very easy to skip them. That's great. But yeah, Ganondorf wanted to maintain the old ways so he could maintain his old rule over the land, and then the King of Red Lions wanted to preserve the old ways, wanted to preserve his old vision of Hyrule. Then at the end of the game, like, color me surprised when the King of Red, the King of Red Lions straight up just says, flat out says, I have been bound. My life has been bound to Hyrule and the service of Hyrule. Everything I have done has been in service of Hyrule. In a way, I am no different from him. And he looks over at Ganondorf. And they really are just two sides of the same coin, ultimately, right? They really draw a really beautiful... There's just two old as dirt ancient beings who should have been dead a long time ago, who are just refusing to give up, who are refusing to give in. Except one could not let go of what was, and one of them literally did. That last moment with the King of Red Lions when he looks at both of them, and I love that, you know, Tetra tries to say, she's like, well, we have a ship, we can go find new land, surely something's out there. Because the King of Red Lion apologizes. He says, I'm sorry for what little your ancestors have left you, but if you hang on to hope, that will get you through whatever this new future is going to hold. And she says, well, wait, we can find it. We have a ship. We'll all go together. We'll go find a land that can be the new Hyrule. And I love that the King of Red Lion says, that won't be Hyrule. Whatever land you find will not be Hyrule. That will be your land. Dang, man, it's good. It's really good. It's such a clear... This game has such a clear scope in mind. It has such a clear goal in mind. And the execution is perfect. The execution all the way down to the final two bubbles being Link and not Zelda, but Tetra, both floating up together to the very surface of the water. Oh, I'm getting misty. I've got so misty. I mean, I was already sort of, you know, because I was talking a couple episodes back. It's the holidays, and I'm always usually get pretty melancholy around the holidays. I guess that's like a thing that happens to a lot of people. As I get older, it gets harder. But you know, as it got older, it's been harder to feel that spark. You know, it feels like the holidays just sort of... the month used to drag on, you know, as I anticipated Christmas, but now it seems like it's already 2 weeks out, you know, and I've barely even finished getting people presents. Yeah. But you know, it's like things change, things are different. The old ways kind of fizzle out, and they're replaced with the new way things are done, and the new things, you know, the new status quo, you know. But what this game says is, do not lose hope. Oh, I noticed Ariel's wearing a skull, like a dress with a skull on it. It must have been one of Tetra's. That would make sense. Well, because she had no change of clothes. She's been wearing the same blue dress since she got kidnapped, right, at the very end of the game. So I'm watching the credits play out as the end of the game play out again. Well, yeah, I mean, what the game says, basically, is, you know, hang on to hope, and it doesn't matter what the future has in store for you. Hang on to each other, hang on to hope, look towards the future, and whatever darkness might be there, you know, because of the people who came before you. And I think that's really what it is, you know. I just know more about things about my family now. I'm older, I can acknowledge more things about my family now, and things are not, I used to pride myself in having a simple family who only got on each other's nerves in the normal familial kind of way. And you know, Uh, it is not like that. It is not that simple. It is not that clean cut. It is the history is as tarnished as anyone else's family, you know. Maybe not worse, maybe, but bad, pretty bad, to be honest. And that's another thing that weighs over me as I see everybody try to get together every year and still try to do good things. And like I said, it feels different. But different isn't bad. You have to keep hoping. You have to look for hope. You have to hang on to the idea that things are only different. They're not ruined. They're not over. We're still going to have Christmas. We're all still going to spend what time we have left together, and that's so it doesn't feel exactly the same. Well, nothing does. Nothing stays exactly the same, and it shouldn't. Change is natural. It's hard to feel that in the moment. My friend Olivia, I talked to her a little bit about this today, and she was like, it's hard when you're in the middle of something to see that, you know? It's only with hindsight. And oh man, I mean, what did the King of Red Lions have except just ample time, ample years of hindsight to acknowledge his mistakes? He even says, I've been atoning for my mistakes. I've been drastically trying to make up for my shortcomings and my mistakes, and I have finally atoned for them. As he looks over at Ganondorf, finally finished for good. I mean, he literally became the pedestal, the new pedestal for the Master Sword, which then sank to the bottom of the ocean. That Master Sword is never going to see the light of day again, surely, right? Like, there's no way. But then, you know, the question then becomes, you know, Phantom Hourglass has literally nothing to do with anything, so we can just rule that out immediately. Spirit Tracks is more so the thing that I'm interested in, because that's in this game's timeline, and it's set must be centuries later, because the land is in fact back. It is restored. The Korok seeds work, and Spirit Tracks is the byproduct of that. And then I wonder, I'm like, but that game has a Zelda. I don't know if the land is Hyrule. I don't know if it really is called a new Hyrule or whatever. I think that would sort of defeat the purpose, but then again, it would defeat the wishes and the whole point and the whole it would defeat the point of the lessons that were learned throughout the course of this game, the sentiment that the game ends on. But it would fulfill that cyclical nature, that like tragic cyclical nature that Hyrule seems to find itself in. There will always be a land of Hyrule. There will always be a Triforce. There will always be a chosen hero. There will always be a swordsman. There will always be a demon looking for power. There will always be a princess to fight against it all. So, you know, in that sense, you know, if it is another Hyrule and Spirit Tracks, then all's fair, you know? It's just the tragic nature of these stories in this timeline, in this series. I do love how they mix, because Wind Waker is really it plays such different sounding versions of all of the classic themes, and then it plays a lot of new themes that sort of have their own vibe, their own tone to them, right? With a lot of different instrumentation, a lot of like accordion sounds, string instruments, some violins and stuff like that. A very, very jovial tune, especially like the whole like credit suite at the end, when it's playing everything together and it's bouncing from classical theme to a new theme to a classical theme, and it was really, oh man, the game was hitting hard with the different songs and stuff at the very end, huh? Hits you with Zelda's theme, hits you with the opening, track hits you with the classic Zelda theme. And it's all very hopeful. It's all so very hopeful. It's I mean, I will say, this story is presented in a much more straightforward fashion, for sure, than Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. Ocarina of Time is all about the implied stuff. It's all about the implied thoughts and feelings of characters, the implied series of events that follow certain things, you know? I mean, the realization, too, that, like, the opening track of the game is both the Earth song and the Wind song together. That blew my mind. I mean, it literally almost made me cry when Fado and Makaro play the Wind theme in the scene at the end of the Wind Temple. This game was brutalizing me at the end, you know? Man, I got all of the pictures, too. You know, that photograph quest, it actually isn't too bad, although keeping track of everything that you need, like, I couldn't imagine. I'm glad I made the spreadsheet. The fact that I thought of doing it without having the spreadsheet, psychopathic behavior. No, just right off, clear as day, just psychopathic behavior. Sorry. I'm so glad they showed Medley and Makar at the end on the ship, because that was my question when I was leaving both of them. I'm like, I guess I'll come back for you guys. I think I come back for you. All I know is that everything in Hyrule is about to flood, and that's where you guys are going to be technically. So, yikes, my dude. I don't know. Don't know how they got on the pirate ships, but hey, whatever works. Although Prince Kamali was there, maybe Prince Kamali picked up on something. I would assume we ended up where the Tower of the Gods was, or near it, so maybe the Tower of the Gods sank back to the ocean as well. Then there's no use for it anymore. Man, Ganon's characterization in this game is so good. He's just this man. He's like, he has his outwardly it comes across like he's got everything together. He's the same meticulous, like planning guy, meticulously planning stuff in the background, just like he was in Ocarina of Time, always working, like always finding ways to get people to do his work for him. But towards the end of the game, his monologuing about the gods, about his homeland, and then finally when he just breaks down and starts laughing, and his laughter goes from maniacal to manic. It's an amazing sequence, and it feels like this Ganondorf feels like he had finally broken completely as a man. Like, he was already a broken man, but it feels like losing this last chance finally sent him over the edge that he was not coming back from. Because at the end there, he's like, so these children are what you're staking everything on? Fine. I'm going to kill these children then. Let's see how they shape up against me. I'm gonna be honest though, kind of a cop-out. He could have totally just beheaded Tetra. I don't know what his why he like puts his sword away to slap him in the face. Not that I wanted to see Tetra's freaking get decapitated. I'm just saying, like, we all stood still and watched him walk up to and do it. So I don't know. I guess we also talk about the fact that, I mean, I played specifically the HD remake. For the first time, I played the HD remake, and my gosh, what a polished, what a like like a really well done port of the game, for sure. Like for sure. They really outdid themselves. Just I mean like just visuals alone, honestly. It's a shame they didn't do Tingle Tuner. They did the bottles instead. And then, well, it's also a shame that I didn't get to see any of the bottles, right? Man, well, it's such a cool feature. It's such a shame that the service is obviously discontinued because this game only exists on the Wii U. Man, I wish if they ported it on Switch, brought the single bottle thing back, that'd be great. That'd be super good. I would love that. Because finding messages in a bottle sounds like a really cool thing to have experienced. But I don't understand why they completely replaced the Tingle Tuner, because you have the person controlling the Tingle Tuner could use the gamepad themselves. It would be the perfect setup, right? So I don't know, like you finally had a better setup than using a Game Boy. So why just now did you decide to completely scrap it? I think that the way they streamlined getting Triforce pieces, I think that made sense, honestly. Why go around and salvage more stuff after you've already salvaged like 40 something treasure charts in the game, right? It's like, no, the crazy stuff I'm doing that would normally get me the chart are the things that should get me the actual pieces. Going into the Savage Labyrinth, going and confronting the ghost ship, that stuff should be the thing that gets me the should absolutely be the thing that actually gets me the Triforce pieces. I think that makes sense. So I think that was a good choice overall. I think I understand why they cut down, because you have to play so many songs so many times over, specifically the Changing the Wind theme, right? So having you play it the first time, playing the song, and then they don't play the song every other time, I understand why they did that. Although, to be fair, you get the fast sale. The fast sale is both like the most amazing quality of life choice that they added to the game, and also, just from a like purist perspective, is also kind of like maybe it does dampen the experience just a little bit, because it does two things. It both cuts your travel time in half, if not more than half, right? But then what it also does is it also means you don't have to even play the Wind song anymore, which was always like the big thing. Now this is me talking as somebody who played this game like a bunch of times as a kid, right? So I have fond memories of all of the traversing, and that meant, so you know, with a from a very biased point of view, you know, take what I'm saying right now with a grain of salt. From the most biased point of view, right? It is a shame that like you don't have to constantly change. Like I guess when I played it as a kid, you do that so much, you kind of start to enjoy it. That starts to become part of it. So when it's gone suddenly, a little part of you is like, oh, a little part of you is a little sad. You're just a little bit sad, like, oh. Well, okay, that's fine. I didn't want to play the Wind song 20 times anyway. I didn't want to sail slowly across the ocean anyways. I think they added more Ballad of the Gale spots too, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like in the original game there was only like 5 spots that again saved you time, but I felt like in this game, if there was anywhere I wanted to go, I could teleport at least two-ish spots away, just about anywhere. Yeah, they but I mean, that being said, I think it's a good thing. I think the fast sale is a good thing. It's just a little little purist in the back of my brain, like, but I want to do the thing, please. But what about the wind song? I haven't heard the wind song 50 times yet. That's fine. That's okay. Probably for the best. Game good though, right? I mean, like it was a very seamless experience. There was no hiccups or anything, you know? Which is, I mean, obviously, right? Okay, so obviously, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, we're gonna have those little awkward hiccups here and there. Although, I don't remember anything too crazy happening when I played both of those games. Obviously, love not having a time limit this time around, just from a stress factor. Because, like, I'm already kind of putting myself on, like, I am already timing myself by recording, right? So then to have a time limit on top of that, I am, like, desperately trying to, you know, I'm desperately trying to make progress and not mess anything that I had planned up throughout the whole time. Again, I try to keep the playthroughs as casual as possible. You're gonna see my blunders. You're gonna see me waste a bunch of time. That's just the way it is. And I prefer it that way. That is the experience. The whole point is to capture the experience. That's the experience. I suck, and sometimes things do not go my way. And I want to show you that, and I want to show you my reaction to things when they do not go my way. Oh, Ariel's theme is the title screen theme. Just played with different instrumentation. Da, 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 da. I suppose it's Zelda's theme, which is da 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 da. Very similar though. It's very easy to get them mixed up. Interesting. Very interesting. I think this is the best. I think this game has the best villain though. Well, Skyward Sword. Ooh, no, wait, no, Twilight Princess too. Skyward Sword's got Girahim, and Twilight Princess has Zant. Zant's really good. I don't know. This is the dilemma, right? I'm sitting here after having played Wind Waker, and I'm so confident. I feel so confident that I can easily say, oh, this game's the best one. It's got the best music. It's got the best gameplay. It's got the best boss. It's got the best enemies. But then the moment I think of any other game, I'm like, well, maybe it's not that simple. Maybe it's not that easy. I love they play Zelda's theme in the credits. They play Zelda's theme with like a harp, but like it feels like it's tuned differently. It feels like it's deeper, so it feels a little different. Very interesting. Man, I love all the shots of just wide open sea. I like the game ends on a wide open sea, nothing in the horizon, but potential, right? But a hope for a future. I would have loved more games. of Link and Tetra sailing with the pirates across the ocean. I would have loved that to have been the game. That's my main thing that I feel like is kind of a letdown with Phantom Hourglass, is that Phantom Hourglass starts, they immediately write out Tetra and her crew, and then put you with some new rando. And I'm not saying he's bad, whatever his name is, La something. I'm not saying he's bad, but it feels, I will say it does feel kind of Majora's Mask, where it's like, let's take Link from another game, drop him in brand new wacky bizarro world, right? Where it's like, is any of this real or not? Is this a real location or not? Ooh, it's like, come on. Give me Tetra Link adventures. I want to see those. I guess you could argue that's kind of what Spirit Tracks is, but Spirit Tracks goes back to just no Tetra, all Zelda, right? Maybe someday, 2D Zelda Legacy, I'll throw those in there, despite my better judgment. I'm excited. I'm still excited. This hurts. This is gonna... Being done with this game, again, because like I mentioned, I don't know if there will be another time I will play this game, if there will be another opportunity to play this game. Any of these games again. But man, I'm glad I did. If you haven't played this game, just sit down and play it. Even if you've seen it done all the way through, sit down and play it with your own hands, I feel like people think too much, like, get a little bit too hung up sometimes. Honestly, yeah, I want to experience something myself. I don't necessarily want to watch somebody. But, like, even if you have watched somebody, if you look at something and you think it looks amazing, go play it. Go play it yourself. It's fine. You can still enjoy it. You can still love that. It's different. It's different when you sit down and you're doing it yourself with your own two hands, It is different. I think that last sentiment that the King of Red Lions leaves Link with, or leaves you with, I have planted the seeds of the future. That's what it should all be about, You want to leave the world better than you found it. You want to leave people better than you found them. If you can. Or at the very least, try, And you gotta let go of what was, and look at what can be now. Another thing I want to add to that I did not consider, that I did not properly articulate because I was delirious and losing my mind because it was late at night when I was recording that. My sort of final thoughts on the game is actually like thinking forward a little bit, because we're going to be going into Twilight Princess, and I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that after Wind Waker, they moved as traditional, not as traditional, but they moved into a much more traditional direction, and they made Twilight Princess, which in my opinion was meant to service what everybody had wanted from a GameCube era Zelda game to begin with. It's important to remember Twilight Princess. I think most people probably remember it being on the Wii, but it is still a GameCube. It started as a end of GameCube life, but still a GameCube era Zelda game, and I mean that's when I played it. That's the first time I played it. The first version I played was on the GameCube, and then I also played it on the Wii. I've never played on the Wii U, so I'm interested to see, especially after seeing the quality of life changes made to Wind Waker, pretty substantial ones that were definitely for the best. I being an old man complaining, oh my back hurts, why can't I play the Wind song 30 times? Oh, the fast sale is so fast. All the quality of life changes in Wind Waker are extremely good. Still a little baffled about the Tingle Tuner. I don't know why I feel like the gamepad was a perfect opportunity to have a second person have their own controller and screen and options and things like that with the Tingle Tuner. Could have even streamlined it a bit so it didn't just consume money. But whatever. But yeah, so I'm interested to see what quality of life changes. I know nothing about the Twilight Princess HD version. I've hardly seen anything on it. All I know is that there's like an extra like enemy gauntlet dungeon, like mini dungeon to do. I know you can use amiibos, because amiibos were happening at that time. You can use a specific amiibo to make the game like extremely difficult. I know that much. I know like you can do hero mode and then use the amiibo, and then the enemies do like six times challenge damage. So that's very interesting. I'm not doing that, and I'll probably never do that. Listen, I always go into these things with I have nothing to prove. I'll do 100% because I've never won 100% of these games before. When else am I going to do that, right? This is the perfect opportunity to do that. But yeah, I have nothing to prove here. I just want to sit down and enjoy some games that I love. But yeah, I think Twilight Princess, it was very clear they went into that direction of like the tech demo direction. It's much more grounded. It's much more serious. It's got a darker tone, darker themes, darker presentation. It's a little more on the realism side. That's a little weird to say because it still has a very extreme art style, but the art style, I would describe it, it's like a very Tim Burton-esque kind of like dark, like cartoony but dark cartoony, where everybody looks like all the character models and stuff look crazy. Like all the character designs make the people look kind of frightening. Like if you saw these people in real life, it would be frightening. A la a Tim Burton kind of film. And what I would say is, well, I don't dislike the art style. I do think it is, people are not pleasant to look at. There's some like gnarly looking dudes in there. And even the people that are the most pleasant to look at are a little weird. They're a little weird, you know? Outside of, I mean, like, you know, anybody outside of like Midna, Link, and Zelda. Everybody else looks pretty wacky, you know? But yeah, I mean, they also move into a much more linear. It's a much more linear game. Not as linear as Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword takes the Zelda formula and cranks up to a million, but we'll get to that when we get to that. I think a huge departure we're going to see from Wind Waker is that Wind Waker after the second dungeon, because Wind Waker's pretty linear, but still presents you with the option of stopping when you're going from one island to another. There's a bunch of islands in between, and they introduce that slowly, you know, and then they open up the whole ocean to you right after the Forest Haven. And then from that point on, in between story beats, you're allowed to explore as much or as little as you want. It's all open-ended. Most of that ocean is optional. But I think what the narrative beats, the story beats of the game do, they play into the open sandbox, because the story makes you go out and search for solutions to problems you're being given. Oh, we need to go to the Earth Temple and Wind Temple. Oh, but they're being blocked. We need special items. How do we get those items? Oh, we need to find the items on this fire and this ice island. Oh, but we can't access the fire on the ice island. How do we access the fire on the ice island? Oh, we need to get into the mother and child aisle. Oh, but we can't enter that. How do we enter that? Oh, we need the cyclone song. How do we get the cyclone song? Oh, well, we have a bow now. We can go talk to the guy. And so it all just like, and in that, you know, naturally, obviously, I like, in order to achieve 100%, I used a guide, because that's just easier to do, you know, for me personally. I don't know how long it would have taken if I just tried to play it by ear. Obviously, they give you a lot of charts, so maybe it wouldn't have been that bad. But when the chart is like, hey, there's like 9 heart pieces on Windfall. There's 9 heart pieces on Windfall. I'm like, how do I even begin to keep track of how many? I don't remember how many I've gotten. I don't remember. I'm not gonna be able to remember how many I've gotten unless I keep like a spreadsheet of them. I'm not gonna know which ones I've gotten, when I can get them, where I'm supposed to get them. It's like, telling me how many there are there, that's a start, but that information isn't being tracked, you know? If that information was being tracked, all of like, you know, like how God of War, not that I would really want it to do this, right? But like how God of War tells you, like, in an area, oh, you have this many things, you have this much out of this many things, and it like lists all the things you can collect. Now granted, I wouldn't want Zelda to do that. I think Zelda is perfectly designed the way it is, because it doesn't feel like it's designed to be 100%ed necessarily. It's designed where it's filled with things to find if you go looking for them. The game, they want you to explore, except in Skyward Sword. They want you to explore, especially in like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker. They want you to be talking to everybody. They want you to be exploring. They want you to be looking around the ocean, the maps, and stuff like that. They want you to be searching for stuff, and they populate the stuff with things to find as a reward. So I think, you know, so the whole game is designed in a way to promote this exploration. They want you to go out and look for stuff. So they present you in the second half of the game, or the last third of the game, with the Triforce, the Triumph Fork quest, where you're finding the Triforce pieces that literally say, hey, they're all around the ocean. Better get looking, and then you gotta go look for them, you know? And I remember as a kid that was super intimidating for me, but for me now as an adult, I love that. I love that. When it's done well, I love that stuff. It's why I love Breath of the Wild. It's why I love Elden Ring. They say, here is what your goal is, and then they don't tell you anything else. And then it's up to you to figure out, okay, that's my goal. How do I get there? Oh, in Elden Ring, it's like, oh, there's a beam, there's one of the threads of light leading me in this direction. I guess I could go there. In Breath of the Wild, every sightline is filled with stuff, but you're told, well, there's 4 villages where the 4 champions were from. You can start there. That'd be a good place to start looking. And then you head in those directions, and then along the way in each game, you find other things along the way, if you look for it. I watched a video recently talking about how Nintendo has shifted in the modern age. They've shifted into, they're very stuck on this idea of like, hey, we shouldn't need to give you a reward for completing a task. The completion of the task should be reward enough, right? I feel like Wind Waker is a happy balance, because that mentality has gotten them into trouble, right? Because that's the same mentality that they used for like the Paper Mario and the Origami King, where it's the best Paper Mario game they've made in years, since Thousand Year Door, probably easily. Well, I mean, no, I would I put Super Paper Mario? Last time I played Super Paper Mario, it did not hit like I remember it hitting, because I was going through it and all of those. And I realized that almost every chapter had some irksome thing that was like annoying to get through, but that you just kind of learned to stomach when you were a kid. But anyway, so Origami King has that mentality cranked up to 11, and that's what the guy was talking about in the video. Let me find what video it was, because it's a really good. It was actually a really compelling video, and it shed a lot of light on stuff that like you can feel, like design choices that you're feeling in the modern Nintendo age, but that maybe you haven't articulated. So. Yes, this it's Ceave Gaming, CEAVE Gaming. Everything wrong with Nintendo's design philosophy and why Paper Mario had to die. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so what happens is they're focusing on the completion of the actual playing of the game should be the reward. So we're going to present you with a task, a challenge, and then doing the challenge should be the rewarding part for you, which is not a bad idea, right? Games should be fun, right? They shouldn't be a checklist. In God of War, 100% in God of War, it becomes a checklist. It becomes like a chores. Like, oh, you got make sure you have 10 ravens to kill in this area. You have 3 of these chests to find. You have this many side quests to do. When in actuality, the best part about doing side quests was not the actual doing the side quest, roaming around trying to find the next point of interest to go press X on, right? The actual compelling part about doing the side quest in God of War was getting more dialogue and more lore and more story for the characters. Like the characters became like the characterization, the further extra characterization of each character that you're partying with, right? That was what made me do all the side quests, even before I decided to 100% the game. I wanted to do every side quest because that just meant I got to spend more time listening to the characters have really compelling, interesting conversations with each other more. And there's some really cool character beats that kind of happen only in side quests. So it's not a bad but like, yeah. So if you go too far in one oh, you should get rewarded for tasks, right? Well, then it's going to feel like you're only doing tasks for the reward. But then if you go too far in the opposite direction, then it's like, well, then I'm getting nothing for doing anything. And that also doesn't feel good. If you push that too far, well, not to mention, it's like, it's the idea of like, do you not, of having too much cookie cutter copy paste progression that pops up in every game? For instance, you know, oh, a skill tree. Imagine if Breath of the Wild, you know, had like a skill tree. You know, all the diamond-shaped boxes. You gotta get your Hyrule points, your hero points, by defeating enemies, and then you can unlock more skills in your skill tree or whatever. You know, like something really generic, right? Like that's not good. That's not great. That pops up in everything. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it's just sort of like, ugh, you know. It's like the most basic idea of what progression should look like in a game, right? But then if you look at games like Breath of the Wild, it's like, well, what's the progression? There's like a couple things to increase. You can get health and stamina increases, and you can increase your inventory size, and then you can upgrade your abilities like 1 or 2 times, or just like 1 time. You can upgrade your magnesis and cryosis and stuff like that. So like, it is, and I like the simplicity of that. I don't like, because I get overwhelmed when I play, like, sit down and try to play an open world game like Skyrim, and I've got like all these 20 different trees and all these different stats to increase. I'm picking up garbage all the time off the ground. I'm just like, it gets to be too much, and I actually lose interest. I start to glaze over because I feel like everything I'm doing is just trying to service getting. Because it feels like I can't do anything just as on my own, right? I can't like accomplish many deeds just on my own. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, it's like, hey, do you want to go over there? Hey, what's that interesting thing off in the distance? Do you want to go over there? Why don't you go over there and do it? You know? And that's compelling, and that's the exploring, going and doing a thing, finding something interesting, discovering something, is the part that made that game amazing for me. Discovering Terry Town and that whole quest line, climbing up a mountain. One of my, this is my main example of why I think the open world in Breath of the Wild is amazing. Because in the first 10 hours of the game, I was climbing this mountain that I just thought, you know, it's a mountain. Maybe there's something up here. Maybe there's not. Probably not. Like if it was Skyrim, there'd be nothing up here. But I'll go climb it anyways, right? And what do I find? But I see suddenly there's stone structures and a staircase leading up, spiraling up the top of it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what the heck? That's crazy. Okay, wait, is there actually something up here? What's up here? And I turn a corner, and there's a dragon, giant blue dragon sitting there, and and it's infected, and I heal it, and it flies off into the distance, and then I see that dragon later on, and I can get materials from it. But that moment right there, just on that spot, it gave me like one material that I couldn't do anything with until the later half of the game. But the fact that I was able to do that I discovered that, come on, dude. Come on, dude. It's so good. It felt so, and Elden Ring is all that, right? Elden Ring's a little more populated with like items and weapons to get, right? But since each weapon, like so many different weapons have so many unique properties to them, going and exploring the world, it's already an interesting world with interesting things to discover. But then on top of that, you also get like cool items and weapons and armor and stuff. And it's like, okay, well then it's doubly worth it. And that right there is why I think a game like Wind Waker, and Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are really good games. Or just the traditional Zelda design philosophy, as opposed to this new age of Nintendo thinking that like it's only about the task you're doing and not about getting literally anything from it. Screw any sort of progression. It's like, no, I don't think you need to toss progression completely out the window. I think what you're doing, you should not put busy work in your game. If you can help it, you should not be putting busy work in your game. Your game should be fun, right? But then also, what like something like, let's look at Wind Waker. What Wind Waker does is they give you this sight line, the sight lines of, look at all these interesting things off in the distance. You go, look, oh, there's a submarine. Oh, there's a cyclone. Oh, there's a new island. Oh, there's like lookout towers. Big things, small things. In each place you go to, there's something new and something unique and something interesting to find and to discover. And then what do you get upon discovering this thing? There's always something to gain. It's just something. It could be big, it could be small, it could be some money, it could be a heart piece, it could be a chart, a unique chart, it could be a bottle. It can be a big thing or a small thing, but you always get a little bit of something for going out of your way and exploring. Like the reefs, for instance, I think you spend the least amount of time in the reefs, but even the reefs have something. You go blow up all the cannons, and then there's salvage to pick up, the cannons to pick up, there's ships to defeat. If you blow up all the cannons, a chest spawns that has its own stuff in it. Always something, right? It's so good. It's so good, it's so rewarding. It's funny because I think Wind Waker, the reason why it's so good, it's not only one of the best Zelda games, it's just one of the best games, is because it has the perfect blend between what you're doing is, like, the act of exploring and discovering new things is fulfilling, while also supplying you with new things. Which is also why I think Breath of the Wild is good, because Breath of the Wild also does sprinkle little things on top. But then Paper Mario is bad, because Paper Mario, what's your reward for doing anything? You get like a cruddy, weak hammer that you get to use 2 times, and then it breaks. Ugh, that game sucks. They've ruined Paper Mario. Nintendo's fear of progression systems in their games has led to this weird spot where you have like one of their classic RPG series is desperately trying to not be an RPG, and it's like, I don't understand why you are so adamantly fighting against this. What is this weird puzzle fight system? The puzzle fight system sucks too. Because one, it's not fun after the 20th time you do it, and then two, you repeat the same, you start to see the same fight patterns pop up within like the first 2 hours of the game. They didn't put nearly enough patterns in there. It's one puzzle. It's one type of puzzle that you have to do hundreds of times before the game's over. Why would you do that? Ugh. You know what was a more interesting fight? Were the non-turn-based fights against the giant papier-mâché enemies. I actually liked those fights. They were interesting. Enemies that had different attack patterns. I could just attack freely. They should have just made it a top-down action adventure game, like a Zelda, but with Paper Mario. That would have felt infinitely better because the writing is good. I like what's going on. For the most part, I like the story, even though they went back to being extremely basic. I think the setup is fine. Like, I want it to be moving forward, but you just get bogged down with fights. And what do you get from fights? You get some money. What do you do with the money? You can get, like, a very limited amount of badges, because you have, like, no badge space, and all of them are, like, really basic, dull passives. Or you can buy Boot 2, 4-use edition. Oh, great, I can buy Boot 2. I can't wait to use that up within the next 3 fights. Freaking awful. Awful. Awful show. I don't... Awful choices, Nintendo. Criminy. You know how to make good stuff. You know how to make good, compelling stuff. That's why, you know, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm hoping they go all out. Because it looks like it's gonna be the same Hyrule, but like with floating islands, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna have to find a way. And I'm gonna be playing Breath of the Wild all the way through and completing at least all the shrines this time around. So I'm gonna be exploring that game in and out. So when I boot up Tears of the Kingdom, if it's the same exact map, I mean, sure, I guess you could blame me. Like, well, why would you play the same game? Or almost the same game right before the new game comes out and get burnt out on it. It's like, well, ideally, I'm not playing the same game. Ideally, I'm playing a brand new game with brand new things to do in it when Tears of the Kingdom comes out, right? We'll see. They've had a lot of development time. Clearly, I trust them. After Breath of the Wild, I'm like, you take me on whatever adventure you want. I'm down for it. You know what I'm curious about, though? I'm almost more curious. I'm almost like I'm like excited for Tears of the Kingdom, but I'm almost more interested in what comes after. What kind of Zelda game do you make after Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? What's that gonna look like? Are you gonna go back to traditional Zelda? You could totally go back to like an Ocarina of Time style Zelda game. That's what I would do. I would go back to basics. I would go back to, maybe you don't have to be like a basic story or setup or like you know, plot, but maybe going back to a traditional Zelda game would probably be the way to go, right? You can't just keep making Breath of the Wild sequels unless you can watch them do like a trilogy. Ocean Edition, The Legend of Zelda, Ocean of Time. Ocean of Wind, and then it's like half of the map is Hyrule, the other half is ocean. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think I think that it's going to be interesting to see. Because Wind Waker has this open-ended mix of like both rewarding gameplay and rewarding the player, right? But it will be interesting to see how Twilight Princess feels after, because it's much more narrow. It's much more rigid. The game doesn't open up for a long time. That's going to be the weird thing, right? There's not going to be a whole lot of exploring. The exploring is going to be very staggered. It's going to be, hey, we unlocked this area, we can explore this area a tiny bit, and then we can move on. A lot of areas don't open up until way later in the game, when you have new items and other things that you need to do, backtrack to those areas to do. There's a lot of backtracking in that game. I know that much. Not as much as not as much as Skyward Sword, but Twilight Princess still has a lot of backtracking. And the game is pretty it's not a hallway. I would say it's like a road. Yeah, that's what it is. Twilight Princess is like a road. It's pretty wide. You can go to multiple lanes, right? And then occasionally there's some like, it's like a highway. That's what it is. Twilight Princess is a highway. There's multiple lanes, and and occasionally you can turn off, go somewhere new, and eventually you'll loop back around and head back on to the main freeway, go where you need to go, right? I don't drive. Some of this terminology is probably lost on me. But Skyward Sword is a hallway. That game takes the Zelda formula. It's funny because it's like Breath of the Wild, every Zelda game makes sense after the one that came before it, right? Except Wind Waker. Wind Waker was like completely out of left field kind of a deal. Although, I mean, after Majora's Mask, you make one of the darkest Zelda games that's about like dying and accepting loss and accepting grief, and grieving over the people that you've lost in your life, and then you make the happiest game ever. That makes sense, actually. Breath of the Wild, though, makes sense to come after Skyward Sword, because Skyward Sword is the most rigid, okay, rule of threes. In Zelda games, you collect 3 things, and then something happens, and then you collect 3 more things. And it's like, oh, criminy. And you go back to, there's only 3 areas, you go back to them, you go back to each of them, you go through them each once, and then you go back through them again, and they're a little bit different. But not by much. And then you go back through them like 3 times. Yeah, because you go back through them the first time, then you go back through them all in the spiritual form, the spiritual state, and then you go back through them all again when they've slightly changed, and you need to collect another 3 things. You fight certain bosses at least 3 times, maybe dozens of times if you get stuck on the boss rush like I did. That game takes the Zelda rule of threes to like a whole new limit, and it's ridiculous. It's too much. It's too much. Yeah, but I think what it will be interesting, right? It will be interesting to see how things feel playing all of these games one after the other. Because right now, Wind Waker kind of takes the cake for me, as far as like I think it's probably one of the best ones. Ocarina of Time will always have a special place in my heart, and Majora's Mask was a great time. Majora's Mask's highs were very high. I mean, just the marriage quest alone that we did towards the end of the game, that was amazing. But I had the least amount of time spent with Majora's Mask, the least amount of attachment. But doing all the side stuff in Majora's Mask, getting all the masks, meeting all the characters and stuff, the dialogue, the story, that was all very good. It was all very good, very well done. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see. But much more story driven too. Ocarina of Time is very flowery with its language. It's a lot of implied stuff. Majora's Mask is a little more forward, but still pretty loose, but still pretty spacious with its story beats. Wind Waker is a little bit heavier than that, but it has large portions where you're allowed to break away from the story and do whatever you want for a long time. It has a lot of good side character stuff, though. Side character dialogue and beats and things like that. And the way it all wraps up in the end. The way all the themes in Wind Waker wrap up in the end with letting go of the past, moving to a new future. I mean, that's the thing, too, right? The gameplay, Wind Waker's gameplay loop, its story, its world, its characters, they all service this one idea, which is basically like, screw Zelda. They're like, screw what you think a Zelda game is. A Zelda game can be this. A Zelda game can be that. A Zelda game can be whatever, as long as it maintains the spirit of Zelda. And ultimately, the spirit of Zelda is adventure, right? It's crazy that this would be considered the black sheep of the series, that when this game came out, so many people complained and were upset with that, because I mean, a lot of GameCube era games are like that, right? Because, like, Super Mario Sunshine is like that, but Super Mario, because, you know, it has, like, it has voice acting, it has, like, a different art style, it has voice acting, it has FLUDD, it has a weird environment where you do weird things with weird people, but it's so endearing, it's so charming, it's so fun, the movement is so free, like, it's so free compared to, like, and don't get me wrong, I love Super Mario Galaxy. That will forever have an extremely special place in my heart. That ties a lot to Christmas in my mind, but like, the movement is just so much more freeing in Super Mario Sunshine, you know? But yeah, I think it's kind of, crazy that people, like, would scorn be the right word? There was so much scorn against Wind Waker. Is that even the right word? Scorn? Let me look up scorn. Definition. The feeling or belief that someone or something is worthless or despicable. Contempt. Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, there was so much scorn for Wind Waker. And now it's one of the most, it's treasured. It's widely loved because people actually sat down and played it and thought about it for longer than 2 seconds and realized this is a Zelda game. This is the Zelda game ever. Just like how Breath of the Wild, which completely breaks the mold, feels like it's a remake of Zelda 1. Like, truly it does. And you realize that, like, it's like, yeah, it's the spirit of, because what did Zelda 1 do? They drop you in the middle of a world and they say, go have fun. Go have an adventure. Go wherever you want. Go whichever way you want. You'll figure it out. Oh, that way's blocked off? Okay, go a different way, you know? So many secrets to discover. I think Zelda games, because when you think about adventure games, right? Any other game that says it's an adventure game often has some other qualifier in front of it, or some other descriptive, some other descriptor in front of it, right? So it's an action adventure. Okay, so it's like an action hack and slash game. Oh, it's a open world adventure game where it's like, okay, it's an open world game, and it's like, yeah, I would say open world is kind of its own thing, right? Because it's like a lot of games feel like open world games. Like Spider-Man is an open world game, but Spider-Man that's not an adventure game, right? You wouldn't call Spider-Man an adventure game, but it's open. It's like the sandbox is open. You can go wherever you want. Grand Theft Auto is open world. Is that an adventure game? No. So there's a lot of things where it's like this game is a RPG open world game. This is an RPG adventure game. This is an action adventure game. This is this adventure game. This is that adventure game. The Legend of Zelda is just an adventure game. It is the definition of what an adventure game is. Like, if I had to describe, because it would be so hard, like, describe to me what makes an adventure game an adventure game. I was like, okay, well, is it like The Legend of Zelda? And the reason for that, in my mind, is because The Legend of Zelda, each Zelda game is about the adventure. It is about adventuring. It is about going to a new place, discovering new things, finding secrets, tackling a new land. You go to one island, you go to the next island, go to the next island, go to the next island. It's like, oh, Breath of the Wild, you're standing on a hilltop. Oh, look at all these things for you to go explore. Go explore them. Go seek them out. Go on the adventure. Zelda 1, you're dropped in the middle of the thing, given a sword. Maybe if you even go in that first room. You don't even have to go in that first room. You ever think about that? You don't gotta go to that first room. If you don't want to. Even Zelda 2, which is a little bit more linear. Which is definitely more linear, but you still have this huge open map, and the approach is kind of like, hey, go do what you will, you know? It's about exploring, it's about discovering. Exploration and discovery. That's what makes an adventure game, and that's what makes the Zelda games the pinnacle of adventure games. There's action in them, but the action is very secondary to simply just the traversal. Have you ever thought about that? Like, yeah, you do a lot of fighting in Zelda games, but I think you do a lot more exploring and moving around and walking around and like puzzle solving than you do action games. Then you fight people ultimately. And I think that's why this game's MVP. Because while we're about to head off into Twilight Princess, which is a lot more story heavy, and I really like the story. I really like the setting. I really like the dreariness, the darker atmosphere and vibe of Twilight Princess. It is a lot more linear. The sacrifice there to have a much more story-driven Zelda game is that there's not as much exploration and discovery as there would be otherwise. There are still things to look at and discover, and then we'll see in Skyward Sword, where Skyward Sword is well, I would say Twilight Princess is more story heavy. Skyward Sword is story driven. The story is the forefront of that game. That game is a story heavy game. A lot of cutscenes, a lot of dialogue, a lot of you're at this plot point, go to the next plot point. Not a whole lot to discover. You'd think when they promoted the game and they showed the whole sky and they showed like flying around on a bird, you feel like, oh my gosh, it's the Great Sea, but we're flying on a bird in the sky. This is going to be amazing. There's like nothing to look at up there, dude. You can fly around like the whole sky in like 10 minutes, and you'll realize that most of it is like chests you can't access yet, sitting on a single chest that you can't access yet, sitting on a island, a little flat circle by itself, floating in the sky. Most of the sky is giant rocks that you can't even walk on anyways. It is not the Great Sea. It's a travesty, truly. Would love to see that done. Well, hey, Tears of the Kingdom. You got a big robot bird, right? Tears of the Kingdom, flying around the sky, big robot bird. Got a weird hand, lets you zoom up through the sky. Come on, baby. Come on, Nintendo. Give me what I want. Give me what I want. What if the whole game takes place in the sky? That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? If the whole game just took place on floating fragments of Hyrule? And there is no ground to traverse? I think they said there is going to be, but oh, man, that'll be interesting. We'll see. Hey, so ultimately, a Zelda game should accomplish is exploration, discovery, and be an adventure. And if it accomplishes that, then it's probably a really good Zelda game. And on that note, I think that's all she wrote. I think I have rambled all I can. I'm a little loopy, a little tired. It's a little late. It's past midnight. I'll make some cookies and drink some milk though. Still, you best believe your boy ain't gonna go to bed. Ain't gonna go straight to bed. Gotta get those sweets in me. Actually, I ain't eating those cookies. I got a baker's dozen from McDonald's. They roasted those cookies. They charred those cookies. Them cookies, charcoal, my dude. Charcoal flavored chocolate, my dude. Chocolate flavored charcoal, my dude. Even. Did I have anything else to thought? I've been. Any thoughts? Most of the thoughts I had on the story, I communicated throughout the runtime of the game, and they all really did come together in the end there. A look to the future, you know. I think it's cool that Link. It is a little sad, you know, to see Link's boat, the King of Red Lions, is just a normal wooden boat now. You could tell too. They I don't know what they did, how they rendered it to make it feel different, but you could tell that it was different. That it was just ever so that there was a spark missing from it now. But I think it's cool that Link, you know, sets off from his home one more time. It's sad, you know, to see his grandma and Ariel. And that sad look on her face where she looks like it hurts, but she's happy to see him off doing what he wants to do. Again, letting go, right? Accepting change. Link won't be there on the island anymore. Who knows when we'll see Ariel and his grandma again, but it's a frightening thing, that change, but it's not a bad thing. Accept that change into your heart, and who knows? Anything's possible. Thanks for watching. If you did, I hope you enjoyed. Next time we're heading to we're switching timelines. We're gonna head back to we took a little detour. So we saw what happened what happened in the child timeline of Ocarina of Time. Now this here we saw what happened back in the adult timeline that we left at the end of Ocarina of Time. And now we're going to be jumping back to the child timeline, but we're going to be moving quite a ways into the next generation of much like how this was many generations after the events of Ocarina of Time. We are going to be seeing what many generations after the child timeline, after Majora's Mask, what that looks like, and how the land of Hyrule has changed there. Maybe meet some new faces. Maybe one in particular, with a frightening little grin. But until then, make sure you be kind. And don't be afraid to change. I'll see you next time.